Hello, welcome back. This is Jose Torres. Today we are going to be creating a to-do list by using Phonegap. So let's start. I am assuming that you have already installed Phonegap and you have basic knowledge about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We also are going to be using jQuery. If you haven't worked with jQuery before, don't worry. I'm going to be providing the more basic things during the tutorial. So let's start. Open your terminal, navigate to the folder you are going to be using. In my case, I'm going to be using desktop and create your Phonegap project. Remember, you can create your Phonegap project by typing Phonegap space create and your project name. In my case, to-do list. And perfect, I already have my project in my desktop. I'm going to navigate to the www folder in my project folder right here. Uh, we are going to be using jQuery as I mentioned. So if you don't have it in your computer, please navigate to jQuery.com/download and look for the version 2.1.3 and download it. I'm going to be using the compressed one. I already have it in my computer, so I'm not going to download it right now. We are also going to be using our CSS reset. If you are not familiar with resetting CSS, basically, as you know, different browsers could give us different results sometimes. So basically, our CSS reset is going to take off all the default values to try to make our look and feel the more standard possible through different browsers. Due to Phonegap is using HTML behind of the scenes to give us the interface, so it could give us different results if we are in an iPhone or if we are in Android or any other platform. So this CSS reset is going to give us the chance to be the more standard possible through the different devices. So go to mayor.web/eric/tools/css/reset and copy all, all this CSS and paste it in a new file. Once you have it, so go to the CSS folder and paste it. And also go to JS folder and paste the jQuery file you just downloaded. Okay, we are going to be modifying basically three files today. The index.js, so open it with your favorite uh, text editor. We also are going to be working with the index.html. And finally, in the JS folder, the index.js. Okay, we are going to keep it the more simple possible. So go to CSS file, select everything and delete it. We are going to start from scratch. Do the same thing in the index.js, select everything and delete it. And we are going to be keeping the more simple possible the HTML. So I'm going to be removing some stuffs on here. Um, don't worry about that. Our application is very simple, so we really don't need all this to demonstrate the point on here. So keep it the more simple possible, and here we are. So let's start modifying our HTML once you have everything clean. I'm going to remove those from here. Okay, the first thing is the CSS reset. So we are going to add a new link tag and just change the index by reset. And also we are using the jQuery library. So I'm going to add it just here. Let's copy and paste just to avoid typing issues. Let's change the title by to-do list. And let's start modifying some things on here. I'm going to have an H1, which is going to be my top header indicating me the application name. I'm going to use to-do list also on here. I'm going to create a div to contain some comments on here. So basically I'm going to provide an ID and I'm going to use new task section. Basically on here we are going to have the objects to allow me to create a new task. We are going to be using an input. ID for this input is going to be new task input. And let's use a placeholder. Also new task. Okay, we also are going to need a button to execute the adding action. So let's create it. Button ID equal add new task. And let's use add as a text for that button. Okay, believe it or not, we are almost done with the HTML. Due to this is a to-do list, we are going to be using also an unordered list with ID task list. And I think it's going to be everything that we need in our HTML file. So basically we created an input text to type some text for our task and a button. How our application is going to look like? Well, basically I'm expecting something like this. Basically where we have our header here, where we have our to-do list text. I want an input on here where I am typing something. I have my button here with the add text and a list of items right here. So I type something in, let me change the color. I type something here. When I press the button, the text is going to be added in the list as a task. If I swipe left to right, so the task is going to be dashed as completed. If I repeat the same action over a dashed task, so it is going to be marked incompleted. And if I swipe left, so the task is going to be removed from the list. So now let's continue with our CSS. Let's close this. Basically, now we are going to give some styles to our application. Oh, let's do something before. Let's open it in the browser so we could be able to continue checking what is happening on here. So remember that to debug in local browser, we need to have a local HTTP server. And so let's start our HTTP server. So I'm going to navigate to my www folder. So just let me confirm where I am right now. Oh, I am in the desktop. So cd to-do list and cd www. Perfect. So to start our local server using Mac, let's type the Python dash m simple HTTP server on port 8000. Hit enter and it is running. So now I just need to go to my browser and navigate to local browser 8000. Perfect. Remember last time we installed this extension. Basically, it is Ripple for Google Chrome. If you have not installed it, please go to our previous video and check how to install and configure it. So let's continue. Uh, Now we want to give some style to our project. Let's start with the body. So basically we are going to provide some standard configurations to our body. Basically, I'm going to be using font family Verdana Arial, font size 18 px, and background color. I'm going to be using the D4, D0, B4. Save it and refresh your browser to see what is happening. Okay, very good. Of course, you can use your preferred colors and you prefer CSS. So I'm going to be very quickly by here. For the H1, I'm going to be using a background color 62 6B 5E. Font size, I'm going to say 1M. The color is going to be F5, F6, F5. The line height 2M and text align center. So check again how is it looking right now. Okay, terrific. It is starting looking as a real application. Remember, we have a couple of input of commands here, the new task input and the add new task button. So let's continue with them. task input and the add new task. Both of them are going to be looking the same basically. I'm going to say display block to have them using the complete line for them. I'm going to say the width is going to be 98% just to avoid them to touch the borders. Margin top 5px for both, and margin left auto, margin right auto. Just to refresh your mind, when we have a object with display block style, we can center that object in the screen by providing margin left auto and margin right auto. So basically that is what we are doing right here. I'm going to provide them with a background color, and for that I'm going to use 75 77 69. I'm going to say the border for them is going to be 0, so no borders. The height to M, font size 1M, and the color. And well, I'm going to use the same that before, just here. So basically F5, F6, F5 is going to be our color. Save it and let's refresh to see what happened. Okay, pretty cool. Right now our list is empty. I'm going to add a couple of elements on here just to be capable to see it and provide the style. Okay, so I'm going to say task 1 just here, and task 2. We are going to remove it later, but just to allow us to complete the style sheet. Okay, perfect. So let's see how they looks right now. Okay, they only looks like just text, so let's give something nice to it. The first thing, I want to separate it from the button, so let's do that. Task list, margin top, and let's say 10px. So with that, we have a margin right here. All the other styles are going to be to our li elements. So let's see what to do. Just to refresh your mind on this selector, basically we are saying on here all the li that are direct descendant from the object with ID task lists. So let's say background, and to provide a gradient, we are going to use linear gradient, and basically it accepts a couple of colors on here. Let's say from white to a very light color. Let's say F6, F6, F7. And we have some experimentals on here. So basically all of the browsers still are in experimental, or you could find them in experimental mode. So let's add them. WebKit for basically WebKit is basically for Google Chrome and for Safari. O for Opera, and the Mus for Mozilla. And let's say the border is going to be 1px solid, and let's use BB B6AF color for this, and the line height is going to be 2 ems. The color for those is going to be 92, 92, 92. So let's check how it is looking right now. Okay, pretty nice. I don't like the text touching the border, or it's that close to the border. So let's add an span into our HTML in order to give a margin, so we could have a small separation of the text with the box border. So let's say task list span, and just have a margin left 5px. Yeah, a lot better. And we are going to need an additional task, because we need to mark those tasks as done. So let's create that task, that style, and apply it for one of them, so we could see how it is going to be working. So let's say text decoration is going to be line through, and the opacity is going to be 0.5. Let's add it to one of our li elements to confirm how it works. Perfect. Okay, now we can continue with the JavaScript side. So go back to our source code and open your index.js. Due to we are going to be using jQuery. For people not familiar with jQuery, one of the main events with jQuery is the document ready. So let's create it. And basically the document ready allow us to know when everything is ready to be used. So once the DOM has been loaded and it is ready to be used. So basically it is a validation to avoid us trying to access DOM elements that are not in memory yet. So that is what the document ready does. Just to ensure that this is working, I'm going to add an alert on here. I used to do that to ensure that all my references are correct, and just refresh it, and you can see that I have the alert just here. So with this, I'm sure that uh, everything has been added correctly. Okay, so what do I need? Basically, I need a couple of variables to start. Those variables are the reference to the input box and the reference to the button that we added before. So let's create them. I'm going to use the dollar symbol on here to identify variables that are related with jQuery. So I use the dollar just to identify them easily. And let's say this is equal to the selector. Once again, people that are not familiar with jQuery, basically what I am doing here is go to DOM, look for an element with this ID. Uh, the jQuery selectors are exactly the same, work in the same way than the CSS selector. So we have pound symbol to select IDs, dot for select classes, and just the name to select HTML tags. And basically, what this selector is doing is doing a kind of grab in the element, so it give us some additional functionalities, made easier to work with the objects. So let's do the other one. This is going to work with the task list that we created. Okay, basically right now what I am interested on is just add new elements into the list. Uh, right now we are not worrying about to save that data to be used again later when I reopen the application. I just want to see that I am capable to add a new task into the list. And we are going to add the code to save that information a little later. So I'm I'm going to say I want to go and select the element with ID add new task. Remember, this add new task is this button that we have on here. So basically, due to it is a button, we want to manage the click event. So we are going to say on click execute this. So with this, we are saying the on works in this way. I say what action I want to perform and what is the code I want to perform for a specific object. So basically, due to we are creating a new element on here, uh, this element is going to be a list item, an li. So I'm going to create a bar new task, and it's going to be equal to that, an li element. And the text that this element is going to show is basically what we had in the new task input. So new task input.val. This dot val is we can use it due to this variable. The dollar new task input is a jQuery variable. Oh, I I forgot that we added also an span around the text. So let's add it. Okay, very good. We have already the structure, but now we need to add it into the list. So let's say $task list dot append append. If basically let's send this variable that we have just here, new task. Sorry, task. And finally, we want to clean the text we added into the input. So let's say that the new task input value is going to be empty. And I think it is. Let's check it and see if this works. So basically I could say here task 3 at and terrific. Oh, thanks. I don't know what is happening with me today with the thanks, but anyway, that is the idea. We already have the functionality to add new elements into the DOM. Remember, we still didn't add the code to keep this saved to be used later when we reopen the application. But we are going to do that in some few moments. Okay, uh, do you remember the draft or the little schema we made later? If don't worry, let's check it. So we created this little design later. Sorry, before. So basically, we said when I put my finger in a task and I move that finger from left to right, I'm going to complete that task. If that task was already completed and I do the same action, is I swipe my my finger to the right, so it is going to be marked as not completed. So if it is completed, it's going to be incompleted, and if it was incompleted, it's going to be completed. Little confusing, but don't worry, it is going to be clear later. And if I swipe left my finger in a task, so it is going to be deleted. So let's continue uh, with that actions. Okay, so to keep a track of what is happening on here, basically we are going to be using the touch start and touch end event. And to keep some tracks, I'm going to have a variable on here. I'm going to say task touch start bar task touch end. Uh, these couple of variables are going to keep the track of uh, what what is the task where I started touching the screen to ensure that when I stop touching the screen is going to be the same task. Okay, so it's just kind of it is going to work just for validation later. Also, I want to ensure what was the point where I started my touch. So I'm going to say task touch start x and a last variable task touch end x. So basically, if I am doing a right swipe, so my start x is going to be lower than my nx, and if I am doing a left swipe, so basically my start x is going to be greater than my end x. So it is going to allow us to know which side I am doing this wipe. We need a way to identify that task, by the way. So right now we are adding different tasks, but we didn't include any kind of ID or key to identify them. So let's add uh, that key on here. I'm going to use the data key. And remember, the data dash is a way that HTML5 give us to add customized attributes to tags. So basically, I am creating a customized data dash key. It doesn't exist in the specification, but the data dash allow me to create it. And I'm going to use a key on here. Probably we are going to use this key in different places. So I'm not going to use indexes because we are going to be adding, removing, saving this information. So the index could be hard to maintain later. So I'm going to create a bar key on here, and basically I'm going to use the date dot now to do that. So this is the key I'm going to use on here, and later I'm going to need to add additional code that is going to use the same key. So that is the reason I'm saving them now in a variable just there. Okay, perfect. So we already have a way to identify every single task. And let's start on here. So basically, I want to say when I touch my task list, and I'm going to say the event is touch start, and it is not direct into the list. It is in a list list item, so li, and this is what I want to execute when my touch start event is fired. So basically I'm going to say bar start is equal to document dot element from point, and I'm using this just to practice a little with some other elements. Probably some of you haven't used the element from point. Basically, it is a function that allow me to give a coordinate. So I provide an x, a y, and I am capable to get what element is just there. So my x element is e dot original event dot touches in position 0 dot page x, and exactly the same for y dot y. So basically on here, the touches uh, give us an array with all the touch are happening in that specific moment. We could be using one finger, two fingers, three fingers, four fingers. So if I am using only one finger, I'm going to have an array with only one position. If I am using two fingers, I'm going to have an array with two positions, the position 0, position 1, and so on. So right now we are working only with one touch. Okay, I'm going to retrieve now the ID for that specific object. So I'm going to grab this using my jQuery, and just say I want the attribute called DataKey. Okay, to ensure that this is working, let's try it. I'm going to create an alert on here, and I'm going to say to send the the task touch start which must be the value for that key. Ensure you save it and let's try it. Refresh your application. Something important, if you test it with those, you are going to get an undefined. That is because due to remember those tasks are in our HTML code for now, but they don't have that value. So to test it, we need to add a new task by our process, and let's touch it. So you can see that we are getting our data key ID on there. So this is working fine. Some other thing that I need to catch in this process is the task touch start x. Uh, Remember, we are going to be calculating the swipe direction on depending of the x when I started and when I ended my touch. So this is going to be equal to the e dot original event dot touches in the position 0 dot page x. Okay, good. So we are done with our touch start. So now we are going to work with our touch end. I'm going to copy this from here and just change the start by end. Okay, I'm going to create a variable end dollar end on here. This is due to we are going to use it in different places. I'm going to create another end. It's basically the same without without the dollar, and I'm going to copy this instruction from here and paste it here. Why? Well, basically I want to retrieve the element from the point when I stopped my touch. So this is giving me that functionality. And finally, I'm going to say it $end is equal to the grab in jQuery of the end element. So with this, I already I have my end element in this jQuery grabbed variable. Okay, first thing I need to ask is ensure that the element where I start my touch is the same element where I am stopping my touch. So I'm going to say and attribute, and I'm going to ask for the data key. Okay, and also I want to know the point where, or the X point where I stopped my touch. And it is going to be the same line that we have on here. So let's reuse it here. Okay, very good. Now I need to do my first validation. I need to ensure the object where I start my touch is the same object where I am stopping my touch. So if it is the same, I'm going to do something. If it is not the same, well, I am doing basically nothing in this case. The other thing we need to do is validate if it is right swipe or left swipe. So let's create a new if on here and ask if task touch start x is less than task dash and x. So basically, if my start x is lower than my nx, it was a left swipe. So in that case, we are adding the done class or removing the done class on depending if uh, it already the current object already have it or not. Oh, I forgot that variable, by the way. We are going to create a variable $this, which is going to be equal to $this on here. Okay, so it is very easy to do in jQuery, just to ask if $this dot has class, and we give the class name. In this case, the class is done. So if the class already is there, so we are going to remove it. So $this dot remove class, done. Else, which means that the object doesn't have the class done, so we are going to add it. So this dollar at class, done. And oh, sorry, we have well, I have another typo on here. It is task. Okay, save it, go back to your browser, refresh, add a new task, and test it. I'm going to click on here, move my mouse to the right, and release it. And you can see that the task is marked as done. If I repeat the action, so it is going to be or the done class is going to be removed. So we already have this. Very good. Do you remember that we said that we are going to have an left swipe, which basically when I move my finger from right to left, the task is going to be removed. We still don't have it. So let's do that. And it is going to happen right here in the else of this if. So else, basically what we are going to say is element end, which is the current element where I am, remove. And that is going to remove our element. So let's add a new task, task 3 again, done, undone. If I swipe left, task is removed. This is working pretty fine. Go to the HTML and remove the couple of li elements that we have in the task list and keep it empty. So I'm going to add a couple of tasks. Task 1, task 2, and test it. This is done. Sorry, no, it is undone, and I want to remove it. Perfect. It is working terrific. Next step is that we are going to add the needed code to save this information into our device. And to do that, we are going to be using the local storage. The local storage is part of the HTML5 APIs. So basically, we are going to be using two methods of local storage: the get items. The get item basically receive a string which is the key of the data I am looking for. It's going to the storage and retrieving it and sending it back. And we are going to be using also the set item. Basically, the set item receives two parameters. The first one is the key name to create the storage, and the second one is the values for that key. So let's go to the index.js. First step, I'm going to create a variable called task list, which is going to be an array. Okay, when I start my application, the first thing I'm going to do is check if there is already data. If there is data, I'm going to retrieve it. As a good practice, we are going to ensure that the browser supports the local storage. So let's say window dot, oh, sorry, if window dot local storage. So basically, if this is true, so we have support for that. In that case, if it exists, we are going to say that our task list array is equal to json.parse the window dot local storage dot get item and a key. We are going to use task list as a key. So if this exists, it is going to send us data back. If not, it's going to send us a null. So let's validate it. So if null is different from task list, so if this is correct, so we have data. So let's iterate through this data. E equals 0, E less than task list dot length and E plus plus. So let's create a bar new task equal to same history that before to create it. So basically we are saying li data key equal to something. We have an span here, a closing span here, and close the list item. So now let's provide the values. So for the data key, we are saying task list in the position I dot key and the the value right here. Task list position I dot task. And finally, dollar task list dot append the new task. And if this is false, so due to our array has been created or populated with a null, so let's say that the task list is equal to a new array. Very good. This is going to be our initialization. So we need to go where we are creating the tasks, and we need to keep some things here in sync. So the first thing is that at this point we already have a task list array, so we need to push a new value. So basically our new value is going to be key, and we already have a value for this. It is the variable key, so let's use it. And we need the task, which is basically going to be the task value, so it is in dollar new task input window.val. And finally, we have the done flag. So it is false, of course, because it is a new task. And once it has been added, we need to save it. Remember, good practice to verify if the window.local storage exists, and if it does, so let's say window.local storage set item. Remember, it receives two parameters. The first one is the key to identify this group of data. Basically, it is going to be task list and the values. Local storage manage only strings, so we need to convert or array in a stringify. I think it is correct. Task list. Perfect. Let's see. We don't need to change the touch start event. It is going to remain as it is. And let's see what do we need to change on here. If we remove an item, so we need to remove it from the task list. So task list is going to be equal. I'm going to use the grep function from jQuery. Basically, I provide an array, and we execute a little function on here where basically I'm going to say return if e.key is different from the current task I am removing. And we save again. So I'm going to copy this and just paste on here. Very good. So I think we are done. Let's test it and see what is happening. To ensure that this is working, go to inspect element, go to the resource section, local storage, select the localhost 8000, and let's do that. We have nothing here related with our application. If I add a task 1 and press add, you can see that a new value is created with my values. So if I create a new task 2 and add it, so it is going to continue growing and growing. If I remove this, we should see that that element is removed from here. Let's remove the task 1. So good, it has been removed. We still have something important. We are not modifying our values when we have a task done or not. So it is your homework. In the next video, we are going to see how to run this in your device, not in the emulator. So remember, subscribe and come back later. Thank you.